Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to HOTFIX. Today, we're going to be talking about the imminent collapse of gas-powered games as a direct result of the failure of Wildman to basically be successful on Kickstarter. So, Mr. Kirioth, where the hell do we begin?
Well, gas-powered games, son, the shutdown it's imminent. It's coming. It's on the way. Unless there's a miracle, because Wildman, the Kickstarter, has not even reached half its goal, sir. And given that its goal is $1.1 million, when you've got 4 days to go, you want to be a bit over halfway by this stage, and it's not happening, bloke. It is just not happening.
Well, I can see the Kickstarter's on $498,742. This will probably change by the time the video goes live, but yeah, that's not even over half the way, which is pretty bad. Now, usually, what happens with Kickstarter projects that come from high-profile, people. So, Chris Taylor, Gas-Powered Games, they are pretty high-profile. They usually get that amount in the first 24 hours. Then it sort of plods along, and then come the last few days, last week, it sort of picks up again and then meets its goal and starts meeting the stretch goals. You only need to look. In fact, there's a website, I forget what it is, but it's like it compares Kickstarters and it shows you how much money they're making and if they're going to actually make the project. And at one point, Wildman was actually going to meet the required amount for the Kickstarter to pass, but obviously that has not happened. And barring some sort of an absolutely epic $500,000 miracle, $600,000 miracle, it's never going to be published, and it's going to result in the collapse of gas-powered games. Now, there was quite an eye-opening, and I say eye-opening because it was quite strange, interview on Rock Paper Shotgun, where they basically spoke to Chris Taylor at the recent, I think it was the DICE event, and yeah, to be honest, he came off like he was on drugs to me. Like this crazy hyperactive guy who's, yeah, whatever, if it fails, it fails. I can take it. Yeah, it's all fine. It sounded mad. It sounded crazy.
It was a bit odd, wasn't it? It was like reading someone sort of massively trying too hard. As those kind of go, yeah, I've dealt with it. It's fine, I've dealt with it. No, I'm fine, don't worry about it. It was a bit creepy, I guess. A bit
yeah,
like
it was, unsettling, unnerving. It was strange. It was weird. Anyway, let's discuss how they actually got to this point. So, I guess we start off with the let's go back to what they kind of originally did with the gas-powered games. So you've got Dungeon Siege, and in fact, Mr. Kirioth, this kind of ties us into. I'll tell you what. Let's do it in a correct order, instead of jumping around like crazy people, like I tend to do, Mr. Kirioth. You've got to slap me into order.
It's enthusiasm, so it takes you up.
I know. Tell me about it. So what they've done here is they've tried to produce an action RPG which has got some RTS elements in it. Why would you do that when the market is pretty much heavily saturated with that type of game? Anyway, allow me to give you a few names, Mr. Kirioth. Diablo 3, the fastest selling game ever, or the biggest selling PC game ever, and all kinds of crazy accolades it's won. Torchlight II, sold quite well. Path of Exile, free to play. Okay. Now, these games admittedly don't have the RTS element, but from what I can gather from looking at the videos from Wildman, the RTS element is kind of like a very... Well, it's a MOBA element, if anything. You think the Nexus in League of Legends spawned units, the barracks from Dota. It just looks like that, where the units just automatically spawn, run up a lane, and you control a hero, which is the action RPG part of it. It's a bit weird.
And it's... comparison with the ones that are already out, then it looks like it lacks focus. I mean, when I was playing Diablo 3, when I was playing Torchlight 2, I have to admit there was no time at which I thought, you know what this really needs? This really needs a MOBA tacked into the middle of it. That would make it perfect. I never thought that. And Wildman doesn't as well look unique enough to stand out from those games either. It
doesn't look very good. This is the problem. It doesn't, to me... I mean, I've backed Kickstarter projects, but I have no interest in backing it. It's just like, while, I think Chris is a nice guy and all the rest of it, I sit here and I look at it, and as a consumer, I'm like, why the hell do I want this game? I don't really want this game. I know it's gas-powered games, and I know they've gave us things like Supreme Commander in the past, but it's like, I don't want this game. It is very strange. I do not understand why they went with this type of game. It's very strange, Mr. Kirioth.
It's
seems to be the word of the
the whole thing of it is kind of strange, because if you look at what they did, the fact that they went into a Kickstarter like Chris Taylor put in this Kickstarter at a point where the company was at like a critical moment where they needed something. Someone needed to throw them a bone. They needed money because they were on the verge of collapse.
Well, before we go into that, let's just look at like let's start from the Age of Empires Online thing. So they got given the Age of Empires Online contract by, I think it's Microsoft in it. So this is to produce content on the game to keep the game flowing. Now, I'll be honest here, Age of Empires Online was a pretty decent game, but it was a bit strange kind of how the free-to-play element worked and the bits of, premium stuff you could buy. It was a little bit strange in that respect. But I think what probably happened is that was an easy meal ticket for gas-powered games. Now, I don't know. This is all speculation, but I think I've run a business in the past, so I kind of understand these things sort of in a limited capacity. But I would believe that would be something where they know they're going to get this amount of money every month, and it's a decent deal for the company. So it's fine. Let's do it. They're going to be paid on time. They're going to make this much money, and that's great. Obviously, developing a game is a bit of a gamble because you don't know if the game's going to do well. If it bombs, you're not going to get funding off that developer, off that publisher again, and all kinds of stuff. So I think that was kind of like an easy move for them. Now, if you look at just prior to that, you've got so they made Dungeon Siege, which was okay. I never really particularly liked Dungeon Siege that much, but it was okay. It wasn't a bad game by any means. Then you've got Supreme Commander, which I'm going to say is their absolutely that was their best game in my opinion. Then we had Forged Alliance, which was that was pretty good as well. Then we had Supreme Commander 2. Well, I think we had Demigod in between all of that. Now Demigod's kind of an interesting one because Demigod was a MOBA game, and you kind of think to yourself they could have had League of Legends because they were there before League of Legends. I know Defense of the Ancients was out, and I think Heroes and Newerth was out maybe, but they could have if they understood the or kind of gambled and guessed at the fact that free to play was going to be so massive, maybe they could have had the next LoL. So you could say that's kind of a missed opportunity. But again, we don't know how what they were doing internally or whatever. Then we go to Subcom 2, which was terrible, and yeah, that was really really bad. So then you've got a company in a state where they've had these games that have not done too well. Even I think Supreme Commander didn't do that well. I don't think.
Supreme Commander seems one of those games it's got better with age, hasn't it? It's like more people.
Well, because everybody got better hardware. It was unfucking playable at the time, unless you had like the absolute top of the range quad core CPUs. It's okay now. Everyone's sitting with i5s and i7s. Yeah, we can all play it, but not in. I think it was 2007 when it came out. So, like, you then go forward to a situation where it's a company that's kind of struggling at that point, and it gets the Age of Empires contract, and that's fine. That kind of consolidates them for a few. I think it was about a year, was it? Maybe something like that. So, yeah, that's fine. But then that contract's come to an end because that game has started to become not as profitable for Microsoft as they like. So they're like, no, we're going to start cutting these contracts, which any business is going to do that. So then what do? Well, apparently they do Wildman.
Which is... You know what? I in a previous hotfix, I sort of defended Chris Taylor and the whole Wildman thing. Because at the time, it wasn't apparent that the company was on the edge of collapse and that if Wildman didn't reach its goals, it would have to close everything down. And I said, well...
of course, when it started. Yeah, when it very first came out, there was no mention of that. And it was like, oh, this looks pretty...
It looked like a project that had been done out of passion for wanting to do something different. Now, that it still kind of looks like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still looks like they thought, I want to do something different to what I've done before. I want to try something new. I'd argue, though, that when you're on the verge of collapse, when you're on the verge of having to let go all of your employees, when you're about to shut the company down due to lack of funds, going with your passion, not the best idea. Because at the end of the day, everyone at some point has got to pay the bills. And if they'd have done a Supreme Commander 3 Kickstarter with, much closer to Supreme Commander 1, would that have worked?
There's a problem with that, though. Yeah, well, there's a problem because that had already been done, Planetary Annihilation. And I severely believe that... Well, I completely wholeheartedly believe that Chris Taylor and Gas Powered Games have literally kicked the shit out of themselves when they've. I mean, because I've seen things where Chris has said, no, I don't think that games like Supreme Commander have really got any foundation in today's market. They don't really have any pull. Doing games on different like multiple battlefields, so like on a planet and in space and things like that, are not really going to work. Then Planetary Annihilation comes along and makes a shitload of money, easily gets its bloody funding, and it looks to like, well, based off the information we've got, because obviously we don't have any alpha footage of the game or anything, looks like it's quite a fucking good offering. Gas Powered Games could have done that, and I think they should have done that. They should have stayed true to the roots and gone for it. Instead, it looks like a company which has had their specific niche title, or niche if you're American, but I'm British, so it's a niche, god damn you, sort of ripped away from them, and there's nothing they can really do about that. You know, because it's not like they don't own the rights to that type of game. Anybody can make an RTS game, and I think that's what's happened. So if they did come out with Supreme Commander at the time Wildman came out, I don't think it would have done that well, because everybody wants Planetary Annihilation. It may have done okay. I think it probably would have done better than Wildman has done. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I think one thing which annoys me as well, when Gas Powered Games moved on to Age of Empires Online, they were actually developing Chris Taylor's Kings and Castles, which was like a medieval fantasy version of Supreme Commander, and that looked pretty fucking good. But where's it gone? Why didn't they just do that as a Kickstarter? Ooh.
That was that's another thing, so because I remember reading about that and thinking that sounds quite nice, and then it just kind of vanished, didn't it? It was like everything just stopped on it, and then suddenly the next thing we get is Wildman, which is just, it's nothing new. It's a weird mix of two genres that you don't think of putting together from a company that their biggest hit, their greatest thing for me was Supreme Commander. So it's like, hang on, the people who made this amazing RTS now are doing an RPG MOBA hybrid. You know, it was not the title to put forward when everything was on the line. Sometimes, I know it's going to sound shitty, but I think, honestly, sometimes you've got to play it safe, haven't you? You've got to just sit there and say, well...
If you're running a business and you've got people's livelihoods, you know, they depend on you, and you need to, and your livelihood as well. You can't just go around making retarded fucking gambles on stuff in any business. And I think as much as, like, you can see Wildman as a gamble, I still, like, internally, honestly believe, like, internally as in internal in their company, they probably thought it would succeed and it was a good game. You can see they've put effort into things like the what do you call it, the concept art and stuff like that, and you can see the gameplay's there, and there's things like the OS, the modding tools and things like that they've actually come up with, which run in a browser, you know. So they've got this kind of like sort of impressive stuff. You know, I kind of think that what they're probably going to do is try and sell that off, maybe, to make a bit of money. I don't know. I really don't know. But I think, like, if I in fact, Mr. Kirioth, why don't you tell us about the I believe this could have actually been published. So why did they go to Kickstarter anyway?
Well, yeah, this is another thing. So, like, Chris Taylor's come out. I think it was in the interview with Rock Paper Shotgun, where he said that there have been offers now to publish Wildman. Like, big names have said, if it reaches its goal, we'll publish it.
Yeah.
Now, that, on the one hand, that's not the first time that's happened, so it's not all that strange. But it is kind of odd in that this is a game that's not going to reach its Kickstarter goal with anything short of a miracle. So surely publishers have looked at the rate at which it's gaining money, or the lack of money, and they know that the people apparently don't want this game, because if they did, it would have reached its goal by now. But they're still saying, oh, if it reaches it, we'll publish it. Well, surely that can't come about from seeing a failed Kickstarter. I refuse to believe that a publisher has looked at a failing Kickstarter and gone, oh, well, it's doing badly, but if it does well, we'll publish it. No, there must have been some sort of interest in it before then. And that leads me to wonder exactly whether it even needed to go to Kickstarter in the first place.
I mean, could we say this might have... I mean, this is all speculation. Could have been a case of trying to make a bit more money than they would have done. You know, now, obviously, game development is a fucking lot of money. You know, $1.1 million might sound like a lot, but even that's not a lot, you know, for making a game. But, you know, if they had some sort of an agreement where, yeah, if we do make the $1.1 million, then we can... This publisher will give us X amount of support and whatever. Maybe they kind of make more money to go in that route for themselves as a company, which might sound like a bad thing, but it kind of isn't. You know, companies need to make money. They're going to do what gets them the most money. And then obviously get all the support off a publisher. I don't know. It just seems a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't see why a publisher would look at a Kickstarter like the one that Wildman's got, knowing that it's probably not going to work, and still say, yeah, well, we'll publish it. We'll give you more money. And it's not like it's just we'll publish it. They've talked about giving money to the project. I mean, Chris Taylor said that whilst the Kickstarter's for like 1.1 million, should it hit that goal and they go with one of the publishers, they could have 3 million to spend on the game. Well, hang on.
Yeah.
If it gets 1.1 million from a bunch of people who aren't interested in the game, by the look of it, someone will give you 2. So you're telling me that when you went to these people beforehand, before they saw the failing Kickstarter, they said no, but now they've seen that there isn't really an interest in it, they're saying they'll give you 2 million? What? That doesn't work. That to me suggests that the offer was made, or, publishers were spoken to, but they weren't given enough information, or even that publishers had made an offer and it had been refused, and now he's being offered a bone. Because it makes no financial sense whatsoever to look at a Kickstarter like Wildman's and then say that you will give more money to the project if it makes it. There has to have been some sort of initial contact, some initial interest, because
it would have been nice to have been on the... Yeah, it would be nice to actually know what has gone on. And maybe as a result of the failure of this Kickstarter, because I cannot... I mean, this is literally at the point now where I would bet money on this failing, because, you've got 4 days to go. You need to make $600,000, and you've only made... Well, you haven't even made $500,000 in, 25 days. That's... it's not going to happen unless, like a miracle happens. The problem is, it's not a game where I don't think a miracle can happen. If you look at the other stuff, like... oh God, what was it? The name of the game's totally gone out of my head. The bloody the RPG game. Oh my God, what is it?
Oh no.
Oh, I can't remember. But you guys will know. Listen to the HOTFIX, you'll know. But that basically got funded almost immediately. Planetary Annihilation really quickly met its funding targets. Wildman is not making its funding targets, and why is that? You ignore the fact that, it's gas-powered games, it's Chris Taylor, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. None of that really fucking matters, because it ultimately comes down to what is being offered, and what is being offered is kind of a little bit confusing to most people, and a little bit like... It doesn't really jump out and grab you. Planetary Annihilation had a very, very slick Kickstarter, fucking hell, a pitch where it had the the conceptualized gameplay footage, and so straight away you could see, you had a vision in your mind's eye of what the game might look like. Wildman, you kind of didn't have any of that.
No,
you just had what I noticed is Chris Taylor, I think in the past with Kings and Castles, he was releasing a blog video like every day or every week, where he'd say like, oh, it'd be like something random, like he'd be playing with chickens or something stupid, and then he'd be like telling you about the game and bits of gameplay footage. It's pretty a funky idea, and it seems like he's just tried to do the same thing again with Wildman.
But with a game with such an odd concept, more need.
Yeah, but it's like so associated with him though. This is the thing. It's like he's using himself to sell the game. Even Chris Taylor's Kings and Castles, that game, it was named after him. This is Chris Taylor. He's over all the bloody videos on Wildman. We get that it's Chris Taylor, but just putting your face on it is not going to sell the game.
Yeah,
because this isn't like a Blizzard or somebody who could just make any fucking game and everybody would buy it. It's a person who, and I don't want to sound like a bastard and like I'm hating on the guy because he's had some major successes, but beyond Total Annihilation, beyond Supreme Commander, what really is gas-powered games done? Well, gas-powered games didn't make Total Annihilation, but the man himself, what has he really been involved in that has really been awesome, or groundbreaking or amazing? Are people getting a bit like, I don't know, like overly nostalgic at the fact that it is gas-powered games? Does it really matter if gas-powered games collapses? That's another point of view. Would you really care? You're not going to see Supreme Commander 3. You're going to get Planetary Annihilation off a different company anyway. So it's like, why would you even care? This is a very harsh point of view, but really it's it is another point of view that needs to be addressed, really, that needs to be highlighted.
The thing is, it might sound harsh, but the sheer reaction to the Kickstarter shows that, really, I think it's something that a lot of people are kind of thinking. It's like, well, no one wants to see Chris Taylor disappear from the scene. No one really wants to see that, because no matter how you look at it, it's another guy who's lost basically his dream. His whole thing was that gas-powered games, he wanted it to remain an independent developer. It's managed, 15 years? It's managed so far, he said?
Oh, yeah. It's been going on. It's from the end of Total Annihilation, I think it was founded.
So, it's had a really good run, and he has created some good stuff, but the sheer lack of reaction to Wildman kind of indicates that it's not just a case of the name isn't enough. It's almost like an indication that, okay, so gas-powered games will go. okay. You know, we've had what we like out of
hang
gas-powered
on.
games.
Here's my example I've got of a... this is a recent one. So this is Dreamfall Chapter to the Longest Journey. So this is obviously, a remake, a sequel of Dreamfall. So, of The Longest Journey. So this has got 26 days to go, and it wants $850,000. It's already raised $597,000, and it's got more backers, I believe. Hang on, let me just confirm that. 9. Yeah, it's got more backers than Wildman's got. So you can see that is something people want. Yeah, that is a remake of a classic game. So again, if you were a company looking at this, why don't you think to yourself, oh, everybody loves Supreme Commander, so I'll just give them a fucking new Supreme Commander. GG. We've just funded a fucking Kickstarter. Instead, it's like, no, let's try and make some crazy amalgamation between different game genres, and yeah, it'll be fine. But no, it isn't. People don't want that. As bad as this sounds, and as much as I like Kickstarter for funding things which are new and different, I don't really think Wildman is that new and different, Mr. Kirioth. I think it's just the same. It's not the same because it's not really anything like it, but it's not really that unique. I need it or I want it in my life.
It's a bit unintuitive. I think there's a problem. It's like I don't immediately
boring.
think...
It's a bit boring. Yeah.
I don't immediately think that what you need in an RPG is a MOBA or vice versa. They're two very different games, and okay, fine. Someone at some point was probably going to try and put them together, but I think it's kind of a good indicator at the moment that it's just not something that's in the public interest. You know, they just don't want it. A bit more market research might have been able to do something about that. You know, they might have been able to, I don't know, make Wildman a bit different to how it is, make it more appealing, make it closer to what people are looking for these days, because there are plenty of very successful Kickstarters to look at to give an indication of the kind of games that people want at the moment. But it just feels like there was far too much emphasis on... I think Chris Taylor believed so much in the game.
I think he
thought everyone
so much
else
in
would.
Himself, though. Yeah. I think he strikes me as somebody who, if he believes something to be great, then it is great, and then it always will be great. That, I mean, he might not be like this, but this is how he kind of comes across to me. And I'm no fucking psychiatrist, but when I do see the videos and the vlogs and stuff like that, he does come across like somebody who firmly believes in what he's doing is really great, and everybody should love it. And sometimes that can be bad. I mean, I don't know how their company works, but me and Mr. Kirioth, arguably we are a company. If I say something to Mr. Kirioth, he'll tell me to fuck off or go, "What are you talking about?" We have a good balance. Maybe they don't have that at his company. Maybe it's just a case of he says what he likes, everybody just accepts it. Again, that's just conjecture, wild conjecture, Mr. Kirioth, but you don't know. So I think what we'll do, guys, is we'll throw this over to you. What do you think? Do you think it's a shame that Wildman is probably going to fail? Do you think it's a shame gas-powered games are going to disappear? Do you even care? What do you think of Chris Taylor? What do you think of the way the whole Kickstarter has been conducted, with going live with a Kickstarter, then all of a sudden saying, oh, actually, if we don't make this, I'm going to sack everybody, so you best give me your money, because that's how it came across to me. Almost like some crazy begging pledge, which is pretty bad. So what do you think, guys? What do you think on the imminent collapse, because that's what it is, barring a massive miracle, of the Wildman Kickstarter from Gas Powered Games? Let us know in the comments. I've been Stylosa and he's been Mr. Kirioth. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. I am at UnitLostGaming. Kirioth is at Kirioth, quite easy to remember. And I think we'll catch him next time, Mr. Kirioth.
We will, sir, we will.
Toodaloo.